It is 05:42 in the early morning. The sea is black, smooth, almost without waves, and aboard the largest aircraft carrier on the planet, someone has just spoken a single word over the radio. Contact, just one word. But in that instant, one man stopped breathing, because that word at that hour in that place in the world means one thing. Someone is coming for you, and they are not coming alone. They are coming in 10 Iranian vessels. Open formation, combat speed, direct vector to the USS Abraham Lincoln. 100,000 tons of nuclear steel, 5,600 men and women on board. A reactor divided into two hearts and one single problem. They are trapped in the narrowest corridor in the world, the Strait of Hormuz. And what you're going to hear now, what happened in the following 27 minutes, changed the United States naval doctrine in the Persian Gulf. I'm your narrator in the theater of war. And before continuing, tell me something. From which country? From which city are you listening to me right now? Write it below in the comments. I like to know who is on the other side, and if this type of military analysis hooks you, leave your like and subscribe. It costs you nothing. It helps me a lot. We continue. To understand what happened that early morning, you have to understand where it happened. The Strait of Hormuz is not a place, it is a wound. 33 kilometer wide at its tightest point. Two navigable lanes of barely 3 kilometers each, separated by a buffer zone. Through there passes 20% of the oil that the planet consumes every day. 21 million barrels daily. Think of it like this. And if someone closes Hormuz, the whole world feels the blow before breakfast is over. That is why the United States maintains permanent presence. The Fifth Fleet, based in Bahrain, rotating aircraft carriers, Aegis destroyers, nuclear submarines lurking in silence. And that is why Iran on the other side has a different doctrine, very different. Iran does not have aircraft carriers. It does not have Arleigh Burke-class destroyers. It does not have fifth-generation fighters. What it has are swarms, hundreds of fast boats, small, cheap, armed with torpedoes, rockets, heavy machine guns, operated by the naval force of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the most ideological and most aggressive arm of the Tehran regime. Those boats do not seek to win a naval battle. They cannot. They seek something worse. They seek to exhaust the enemy's missiles, and when the enemy runs out of missiles, they sink it. That is the simple, brutal, asymmetric doctrine. And that night, that doctrine was put to the test. Let's return to the sea. It is 05:42. The Abraham Lincoln has been in transit through Hormuz for 18 hours as planned. The operation was coordinated 72 hours in advance. Central Command authorized the passage. All protocols are active. The strike group is not traveling alone. It never travels alone. Ahead. In Vanguard formation, a Ticonderoga-class cruiser, 122 vertical launch cells. Aegis radar and S-band, eyes and shield at the same time. Behind and on the flanks, two Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, 96 cells each. Standard missiles, evolved Sea Sparrow missiles. Tomahawks, for land attack if things get ugly. Further ahead, still invisible under the surface, a Virginia-class attack submarine. Silent, patient, listening. And in the sky at 9,000 now Bowler and Hawkeye circles in orbit. Rotating radar, ultra-high frequency band, capable of seeing enemy boats at 300 kilometers. It is the eye of the group. On the deck of the Lincoln, 4 Super Hornets are armed, hot, with the pilots in the cockpit. This is what is called Alert 5. 5 minutes to take off, not one more. Everything seems under control until it is not. But before reaching that moment, let me show you something that is not seen on any map. At 05:30, 12 minutes before contact, the Lincoln's meteorological officer delivers his daily report. Water temperature 32 degrees, high salinity, visibility 10 miles. Light winds from the northwest, new moon, perfect night to operate, perfect night to be attacked. Because those same conditions that allow the air wing to take off without turbulence also allow an Iranian boat to glide over a flat sea without making noise, without raising a wake that can be seen from afar, without leaving a clear thermal signature in the far infrared. And here comes a detail that few analysts mention. The naval force of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps does not attack when it suits them. It attacks when it suits the water phenomenon, when the thermocline is low, when the sea returns a clean echo, when infrared cameras have more contrast against the cold background. They know oceanography, they study it, they use it. The enemy that many underestimate because it comes in fiberglass boats actually has naval doctorates behind each maneuver. And that night, the doctorate worked. 05:42, the radar operator of the Vanguard destroyer detects something. They are small contacts, tiny radar cross-section, less than 10 millimeters, almost the size of a car, but they are fast. Too fast. 45 knots, maybe 50. They are not fishermen. Fishermen do not run like that in complete darkness. They are boats, and they are not one or two. The Hawkeye confirms what the destroyer's radar begins to draw. 10 contacts leaving from 3 different points. Bandar Abbas to the north, Abu Musa to the east, Keshem to the northeast. Dispersed formation, converging vectors, sustained speed. This is not coincidence, this is a maneuver. In the Lincoln's Combat Information Center, the officer on watch looks at the tactical screen. The 10 contacts appear in red, each with its vector, each with its predicted closest point of approach. If they maintain course and speed in 22 minutes, they will be less than 2,000 yards from the aircraft carrier. 2,000 yards. That is torpedo distance. That is short-range anti-ship missile distance. That is suicide attack distance. The officer grabs the direct line phone to the bridge. Captain, we have activity. I request elevation of condition. The response arrives in 6 seconds. Condition 1. All stations. Weapons ready without authorization. I repeat, weapons ready without authorization. That means one thing, weapons prepared. Authorization to respond only in immediate self-defense. No one fires without order. No one. Because one single wrong shot and the price of a barrel crosses $50 before lunch. Now stop for a second. Imagine that you are the captain of the Abraham Lincoln. You have 5,600 people under your command, a nuclear reactor, an air wing valued in billions, and you have 10 red dots on a screen coming straight at you. What do? Do you shoot first and ask questions later? Or do you wait to see if it is a bluff? Because here's the paradox. If you shoot too early, you are the aggressor. You started a war. Your career is over, and maybe the world too. If you wait too long, they sink you. Leave me your answer below in the comments. What would you do? I want to read what you think. Because what that captain decided that early morning was not what most would have done. We continue. 5:46, 4 minutes after first contact. The 10 boats are already at 25 nautical miles. They maintain speed, they maintain vector. In the Lincoln's hangar, 2 Seahawk helicopters prepare for takeoff. They are armed with Hellfire missiles, also with precision-guided rockets, and with .150 caliber machine guns. They are the first who are going to speak with the Iranians, not with words, with presence. The first Seahawk takes off at 05:48. Lights off, night vision active, low flight over the water, 4M altitude. The second follows 30 seconds later. At the same time, 2 Super Hornets catapult from the deck, one from catapult 1, another from 3. The roar of the engines makes the entire hull vibrate. They are the most expensive ships in the world going out to look into the eyes of boats that cost us each. The paradox of the Gulf. An evolved Sea Sparrow missile costs $0. An Iranian boat. If you put everything on it, it does not exceed 150,000. The Iranians know it. That is why they send 10. That is why they send 50 if necessary. Because the math is on their side. ULWES 551. The first Seahawk reaches visual contact with the most advanced boat. It identifies it in milliseconds. It is a PUP-3, 17 Emden length, low hull, 2 324mm torpedo tubes, a 12.7mm machine gun on the bow. The pilot transmits over encrypted radio, target identified, PAP-3 armed, speed 48 knots, crew estimated 4. Vector confirmed to the aircraft carrier. Behind the first come 3 more boats of the same type. Further back, 3 Thunder-class boats. Larger, more dangerous, each with 4 Nor missiles. Range 120 kilometers, 165 kilo warhead, and 3 vessels that the Hawkeye cannot classify with certainty. They are small, they are fast, but they have no visible crew in the infrared images. The Hawkeye operator frowns. He transmits 2 words, possible drones, unmanned boats, loaded with explosives, guided by remote control or by satellite signal, and with no one on board to doubt, with no one on board who is afraid of dying because they are not alive to die. On the Lincoln's bridge, the captain receives the data and clenches his jaw. 3 suicide boats, 7-manned, torpedoes, missiles, machine guns, and 22 minutes on the clock. He calls on the direct line to the Admiral of the 5th Fleet in Bahrain. The Admiral is awake. He's been awake for 20 minutes. He already knows everything. Permission for escalation of force. Phase 2. Granted. Phase 2. No more. Phase 2 means audible warnings and flares. There is still no authorization to fire, but the threshold has already begun to drop. ZO 554. The Vanguard destroyer transmits on the international emergency frequency. Channel 16, in English first, in Farsi afterwards. Iranian vessels approaching the United States Navy strike group. Alter your course immediately. I repeat, alter your course. Do not approach within 5 nautical miles. No, this is a final warning. Silence. The boats do not respond. They do not alter speed. They do not alter course. 10 seconds, 15, 20. Nothing. The destroyer fires the first flare. A red arc crosses the sky over the water. It illuminates the silhouettes of the boats for an instant. They are real. They are there. It is not a dream. The boats continue. The first Seahawk opens warning fire. 50 caliber machine gun. Short burst. The bullets impact the water 20 kilometers in front of the leading boat. Nothing. The pilot curses under his breath. They are playing chicken, and it is true. The Iranians know the game. They know that every meter they advance without being destroyed is a propaganda victory. They know that the United States does not want to fire first. and they know that every second of video they can record from their boats is worth gold on the regime's channels. It is psychological warfare at 45 knots. And while all this happens at sea, inside the aircraft carrier, something else happens that deserves to be told. In the Combat Information Center, the most protected room of the ship, 20-something operators are focused on their screens. They do not look at each other, they do not speak, they only process. Radar, sonar, communications, electronic warfare. Each one is a node of a giant nervous system that reacts faster than any single human mind. There's a kid, 22 years old, surface system operator. It is the first time he sees a real threat on his screen. Not a simulation, not an exercise, real. His hands are sweaty. The cup of coffee that he had next to him 10 minutes ago is cold, and the officer in charge sees him trembling a little. He puts his hand on his shoulder without saying anything, just that. And the kid breathes and keeps working. That is also modern naval combat. It is not only the missiles, it is not only the radars, it is also the young hands that press correct keys in milliseconds, because a human error at that moment costs lives. That is why the Navy trains the way it trains. That is why shifts last 6 hours and not 8. That is why each operator spends thousands of hours in simulators before touching a real console. All for that moment. The moment where the screen stops being a game. 0557. The boats are at 12 nautical miles. The distance shortens 3 miles per minute. The Vanguard destroyer breaks formation and moves diagonally to interpose itself. It is a risky maneuver. It weighs 9,000 tons. It turns with full rudder. The stern raises a gigantic white wake. It positions itself between the aircraft carrier and the swarm. Living shield. On deck, the 5-inch guns rotate. They aim. The servo motors groan under pressure. The Aegis fire control systems already have each boat locked, each one with its firing solution, each one milliseconds away from being turned into splinters if the order comes. The point defense system operator switches to automatic mode, 20 millimeter, 4,500 rounds per minute. Last ring of defense. When that system fires, it is because everything else failed. And here begins what no one expected. USS 559, the 3 boats that the Hawkeye could not identify, the ones suspected to be unmanned, accelerate. They go from 45 knots to 60 knots in open sea. No manned boat does that. The vibration at that speed breaks a man's spine in minutes. Confirmed. They are naval drones, and they are coming straight to the Lincoln's flank. Not to the destroyer, not to the cruiser, to the aircraft carrier. The combat center operator shouts the alert. Drones accelerating. Vector to the aircraft carrier. Estimated impact, 4 minutes, 4 minutes, in 4 minutes. 3 floating bombs with 450 kilos of explosive. Each one can open a hole in the hull of the Lincoln the size of a truck. They would not sink the aircraft carrier. No, a Nimitz does not sink with that, but they would leave it inoperative, without speed, without the capacity to launch aircraft. A static target in the narrowest channel in the world. And then the Iranian coastal missiles from Bandar Abbas would do the rest. The captain has 3 seconds to decide. 3, 2, 1. Weapons free against drones. Only drones. I repeat, only drones, weapons free, authorization to fire. The order spreads in less than half a second throughout the entire tactical system of the group. The Vanguard destroyer releases 2 evolved Sea Sparrow missiles from its vertical cells. The missiles come out with a white roar, accelerate, turn, launch themselves against the 2 most advanced drones. The 3rd drone is left for the helicopter. The pilot of the first Seahawk already has the target locked. He releases a Hellfire. The missile drops from the rail. It accelerates. It connects with the drone in naval in 3 seconds. Explosion. An orange fireball over the black water. The other 2 drones are destroyed by the Sea Sparrow at intervals of 1 second. 3 explosions. 3 drones eliminated. But the swarm does not stop. The 7-manned boats continue advancing. And now from the Iranian coast, something else appears on the radar. The Aegis detects launches, 2 missile signatures from the islands, probable Noor, probable Nasser, Vampire, Vampire, Vampire. 2 vampires in flight. Vampire is the code of the United States Navy for incoming anti-ship missile. 2 anti-ship missiles, flying at 3M above the surface of the water. Subsonic speed, but cheap, massive, difficult to detect because of the curvature of the planet and the noise of the sea. Time to impact, 87 seconds. Listen to me carefully. What happens in these 87 seconds is why Aegis destroyers exist. All the doctrine, all the training, the billions invested in S-band radar, everything converges in this instant. The radar of the cruiser locks onto both vampires in seconds. It calculates trajectory, calculates altitude, calculates speed. It transmits firing solution to the weapon system. 2 standard missiles leave the vertical cells, 1 for each vampire. Speed 3.5 times that of sound. They ascend quickly, curve, descend to sea level to intercept. 54 seconds to impact. An Iranian missile is destroyed at 6 kilometers from the group. The Standard catches it at the correct angle, detonates its directional fragmentation warhead, and the Nore turns into rain over the Gulf. The second Vampire evades. Yes, it evades. And the NOR does not have real evasive maneuvers, but the Standard also has margin of error, and sometimes things do not go as they should. The second Standard passes 20 meteors from the Nore without detonating. It fails. The Vampire keeps coming. 32 seconds to impact. The flank destroyer fires 2. Evolved Sea Sparrow, medium layer defense. Both missiles launch against the Nore. 20 seconds. One of them hits it. The Nore disintegrates at 4 kilometers from the destroyer. Silence on the radio channel. Nobody says anything for a whole second. That second lasts 1,000 hours. And then the voice of the anti-air warfare officer. Vampire eliminated. I repeat, Vampires eliminated. The captain releases the air he had held, but 7 boats are still missing and they continue advancing. 0604 distance, or 8 nautical miles. The 7P, Cap, and Thunder continue in open formation. They do not know that the drones were destroyed. They do not know that the coastal missiles were intercepted, or they do know. And they do not care. They are convinced that an isolated United States aircraft carrier in Hormuz is a trophy worth death. The captain of the Lincoln makes the decision that will define the rest of his career. Escalation of force, Phase 3. Kinetic warning fire. Phase 3 means direct shots into the water in front of the boats, not to hit them, to tell them with lead that the next bullet enters the hull. The 5-inch cannon of the flank destroyer opens fire. The first projectile explodes 50 millers from the leading pay-up, column of water 30 meters high. The sound is apocalyptic. The leading boat breaks, and for the first time in 28 minutes, the Iranian formation breaks. 2 PCAP turn to port, begin to retreat, but the larger, more armed Tandar continue 3 Thunder, each with 4 missiles, each capable of sinking a destroyer if it fires and is lucky. They are at 6 miles, 5, 4, and suddenly one of the Tandar opens the launch compartments of its missiles. The operator of the Aegis sees it in real time. The electro-optical sensors capture the movement of the cover's opening. Launch preparation detected. Central Tandar. The captain does not hesitate. Weapons free against Central Tandar. Immediate. Execute. 2 seconds. The flank destroyer fires a Harpoon anti-ship missile. The cruiser fires a Standard missile against a second Tandar that also opens compartment. And from above, the second Seahawk releases 4 Hellfire and burst against the third Thunder. 11 weapons in the air at the same time. 5 seconds later, 3 columns of fire rise over the water. The 3 Tandar are destroyed before they can launch a single missile. Now think about the other side for a second. Think about the Iranian crew members, because they are also people, young, most under 25 years old, recruited in cities like Kerman, Isfahan, Ahbas, many from poor families. Some were chosen because they memorized the Quran, others because they had experience as fishermen, all with the promise that dying attacking a ship of the great Satan would take them to paradise. The commanders who sent them that night were not in the boats, that must be said. The commanders were in an air-conditioned room in Bandar Abbas, watching the same radar screens as the Americans, but with less resolution, drinking coffee, smoking, deciding which boat advances first as if they were pieces on a board. Asymmetric war has that unequal human cost. The one who plans never dies, the one who executes can always die. And that paradox, that pure injustice, is also part of the Persian Gulf. The other 4 PUAP are already in full retreat. They do not fight, they do not fire, they run. The captain does not pursue them. That is also a decision. Pursuing them would mean entering deeper into Iranian waters. It would mean escalation. It would mean more dead. It would mean headlines. Letting them go means that the swarm learned the lesson. The captain transmits by open radio in Farsi and English. Iranian vessels maintain course of retreat. We will not pursue. End of transmission. And he lowers the microphone. He looks at the clock. 061, 30 minutes since first contact. 27 minutes since things got bad. 3 drones destroyed. 2 anti-ship missiles intercepted. 3 Thunder sunk. 4 boats in retreat. 0 United States casualties. 0 impacts on the Lincoln. But this did not end there, because the real cost of that dawn was not measured in sunk ships. It was measured in what the strike group spent to defend itself. 2 Standard missiles, 2 Evolved Sea Sparrow, 1 Harpoon, 1 more Standard, 4 Hellfire, 1 more Hellfire from the first helicopter, half a dozen 5-inch projectiles. With such money, more than $25 million in armament in half an hour to destroy boats that together do not cost $2 million. That is the mathematics of the swarm, and that is the true Iranian victory. Even though they lost 6 vessels, even though they lost men, even though they lost missiles, they forced the most expensive system on the planet to burn precision ammunition against low-cost targets. If this maneuver is repeated 10 times, the strike group runs out of magazine, and when the magazine empties, the real attack comes. That is why the United States Navy, after that dawn, changed something. It began to deploy more lasers, more electric cannons, more guided 30mm munitions. Everything that is cheap, precise, and reusable, because the future of naval combat in the Gulf is not missile against missile, it is pocket against pocket, and whoever endures cheaper wins the war. Tell me one thing. Do you believe that the United States will be able to maintain naval superiority in Hormuz in the next 10 years? Or do you believe that the swarm doctrine, combined with increasingly cheaper drones, will end up forcing the Navy to rethink the entire concept of the aircraft carrier? It is a serious question, because a NIMS costs $13,000 million. A swarm of 50 suicide drones costs less than a cruise missile. The Pentagon knows it. That is why the new Ford class brings directed energy systems. That is why the defense rings are being redesigned. That is why the role of the aircraft carrier is mutating. But meanwhile, the Lincoln kept sailing that morning. At 0632, it left the bottleneck of Hormuz, open waters of the Gulf of Oman, increasing depth, margin of maneuver. The captain went to the cabin, sat down, did not sleep, wrote the report for the admiral. 7 pages. The last line said like this, word for word. Recommendation. All future transitive strike group through Hormuz must assume swarm saturation with unmanned component. The current doctrine is insufficient. End of report. 7 months later, that recommendation became official document of the Fifth Fleet, a paper born from 27 minutes of real fire. What happened that dawn did not come out in the headlines. There was no public statement. There was no presidential tweet, because that is how this works. The wars that are not declared are the ones that change history the most. The confrontations that are not told are the ones that redefine doctrines. And the 27 minutes that nobody saw are the ones that determine what happens when the next crisis is public. Ormut continues being the neck of the world. Iran continues sending boats, and the United States continues passing aircraft carriers. This dance will not end until one of the two makes the mistake that almost happened that night. If you got this far, thank you. Seriously, this type of reconstruction takes weeks of research, open sources, declassified reports, doctrine analysis, consultation with ex-military, all so that you can understand how the real wars of the 21st century are fought. Not those of the movies, the real ones. If you liked it, leave your like, subscribe if you have not done it yet, activate the bell, because I have more scenarios in queue, more swarms, more submarines, more impossible decisions taken in 3 seconds by officers that nobody knows. And tell me again from which country, from which city you are listening to me, because I want to know how far Teatro de Guerra reaches. See you in the next analysis. Take care and remember, the swarm never sleeps.